Hi everybody, my name's Scott Hillier, President of the European Independent Film Festival, as well as 3 other film festivals, one in Asia, Africa and the Americas. And in our continual continual mantra of bringing great stories to people, not only on the cinema screen, but also on these podcasts, we're doing a series of 2016. We're looking back to 2016 and the filmmakers that honored us by participating at ÉCU 2016 here in Paris and France. It's a great series, and our goal is to find out a little bit about them leading up to 2016 itself, and a little bit about what they're been up to afterwards. It's always a pleasure to see the faces behind the films that we've enjoyed so much. I'm going to go first to Geraldine Moriba, Canadian. 5-time Emmy award-winning journalist and documentary filmmaking. She's currently an executive producer of CNN's original program development team and vice president of diversity and inclusion of CNN Worldwide. As a bit of an overachiever, in addition to her Emmy award, she's also won an Alfred I. DuPont Award, 2 Peabodys, and I could just go on and on and on. Damn these overachievers. So before we get up until 20, which is the film we screened in 2016, Geraldine, tell us a little bit about your story up to then.
I started my career in radio in Canada, and the beauty of starting to work as a storyteller in radio is you're trained for the air. So it basically was a incubator that taught me how to tell stories and really make people pay attention. When I moved to New York and started working in television news, I realized that adding the visual layer on top just made stories richer. So that's my origin story, starting as a journalist, telling stories specifically around news and audio news. And interestingly, I've told documentary stories throughout my career, but I've now, in many ways, returned back to audio as well. I think that my entire career has been around storytelling that is about social justice and social impact, or people who are trying to make the world better, whether they're consciously and actively doing that, but just by the actions they take, whether deliberately or not, have actually made a difference.
It's very interesting. When we talked all those years ago about that, I was a war guy for a long time, and we never crossed paths directly, but I know that you know some of the people that I know, and Cindy and Lisa and people like that. I did the Somalia and Bosnia and all those type of things with those people, and I think you're right. I mean, the idea of telling stories is amazing. When you can tell stories that can actually directly infect people, it's an amazing, amazing feeling. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Until 20?
So Until 20 is a documentary that sort of fell on my lap, as these things sometimes do. But it's a story that happened because I live in New York City, but when I made this film, I just actually finished getting treatment for a very, very rare cancer called sarcoma. And 1% of all cancers are sarcomas. And actually, I hadn't just finished getting treatment. I was at my 10-year anniversary at that point. But 1% of all cancers are sarcomas. And I was going every year back to Houston, Texas for checkups. On one of those visits, somebody said to me, there's this kid you have to meet who he's incredible. And he has the same disease, and he has less than a year to live. And I immediately thought, well, that, of course, is tragic and sad, and I didn't know what I could do with his story. But I gave him a call, and in that first phone call, I realized that actually there was a massive story to tell about James. His name's James Ragan, because the story wasn't about end of life. His story was about how to love deeply and how to have courage. And he had decided that he'd been given the best gift that anyone could be given. He knew that he was at the end of his life, and he didn't see it as a tragedy. He saw it as an opportunity to use that stage to create more awareness of childhood cancers and rare cancers, and basically had gone on this mission to talk to every person he could, start a foundation, help other kids with cancer. And that's what we started doing, was just following him on this really rapid, intense journey across the last stages of his life. And what's amazing is the documentary was released 10 years ago. And my own cancer journey was 20 years ago, anniversary period as well. There almost isn't a single day where I don't think about the lessons I gained from James. He still continues to impact me every day. One of the things we gave out at our film, our original screenings, were these tape measures. When you're measuring anything, you pull it out of a cylinder, the long piece, but on the outside of it, we wrote, how do you measure a good life? And then when you pulled out the tape measure, there were just all these quotes from the film. I still have one or two of them. I think about James because we need to be inspired as human beings. We need stories to motivate us to keep going. And his story is the kind of story that just keeps giving again and again and again. It's evergreen and really impactful.
But don't worry, this isn't a sad story. I'm still here. At the moment, we're very privileged to be able to speak to a 2016 European Independent Film Festival alumni, Marc Martínez Jordán. Marc is a fabulously talented filmmaker, and his first 3 short films were selected in 500 film festivals all around the world, and he's won more than 200 awards. So he's a very, very talented filmmaker. I remember his film well. It's from 2016, Horseface. So, Marc, it's great to see you again after all this time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since 2016, and of course, don't hesitate to mention Horseface, because that's how we got to meet each other.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I mean, I think that you made the best introduction possible of my persona. I wish there was a lot of people hearing this. Maybe my life is going to improve a lot. But it's a pleasure, as I was saying. I'm happy to be a kind of a friend of 2016 right now. I just had to wait 10 years until somebody, But yeah, I'm super grateful, and well, since 2016, Horseface for me was it's a very special short film, obviously, for several reasons, creatively, obviously, but also as a personal. For me, it was a liberation in terms of filmmaking. When you studied in a film school, they try to make. You believe that there is a kind of a system, an industry, a way of doing things, which obviously exists and obviously it's there, but sometimes can be a little bit anti-creative for people that maybe has another different way of expressing of filmmaking. What I want to say is that maybe sometimes it's too much industrialized. So when I ended up at film school, I decided to do the opposite, to make a short film with almost no budget, with no actors, and taking like a risk, a creative risk, but it was not even economically or nothing, so it was an experiment. And I was not expecting like to find reasons to 10 years later somebody asking me for that, I was not expecting this to happen at all at that moment, but I made the short film, and then important festivals, obviously like yours, which not only select it was probably the first important selection and also the first important award that I got. It made me see that there was so it was, I think, a reciprocal thing, because you guys also made me believe that this makes sense, and so I was with festivals, with people seeing it. Also, it helped me realize that I don't need, like, obviously I need to work with actors, but real world, depending on how you film it, can be like a strange, a weird fiction, So for me, it was a liberation, and I because it worked in festivals, and it was acquired also one of the first TVs that acquired a short film was Canal Plus, which also, I have like a kind of love story with France in terms of movie acquisitions from. So yeah, it was like, I was like, okay, I need to continue this path, I need to. But what happened after? What happened when, sometimes life, when you want to do something and you find like the clear path, the opposite happens, So I got the opportunity to make a movie, but it was not like a movie that came from my creativity. It was like kind of because I can acquire experience at what it means to make a long feature film, more like in the final result. It ended up being like a slasher movie. It's weird. You see my filmography is like from Horseface to a slasher movie. It's like, wow, something happened in between. In the life of this dude, something happened in between. But no, what happened was I got this opportunity. It was, I was with a lot of people around me that they wanted to make things also. I think it was a good quest at that moment. We made the movie. It got released in several countries. It was not a success in terms of critic or even like reviews, but it helped me later to acquire a visa to work in the United States, because the movie got distribution there. So it was not a foreign base. But just after later, I decided to continue this path after Horseface, and I decided, because Horseface, I think that it's heavily based in maybe another short film directors, as Chema Ibarra or Ion de Sosa. There are filmmakers that also probably got through a same vital professional crisis as mine. Like, this is the only path now, maybe. So I decided to evolve more into my own path, and then I direct Your Last Day on Earth, that maybe it's like a short film that is also with the same philosophy, not actors, an animal, in this case a fox, filming a play like in a park with real people. So it was the same philosophy, but I added a little bit more of fantasy, a little bit more of science fiction, and it was colorful. It was more trying to make like a low budget Ghibli short film. And then it worked. It really worked too. So I was like, oh my god! I told this joke twice, and people laughed twice. So maybe I'm gonna try to do it a third time. And after Your Last Day on Earth, that it was a short film that was not acquired by so many TV platforms, but it was released on YouTube, and it got like a lot of reviews and it has a lot of votings, so it made me feel that people watch it. It probably was the short film that more people watch it, that I have made. And then I made Solution for Sadness, that was like, it's my first, I'm from Catalonia, and this is a little bit a shame, but I had to wait until my third short film to make a short film in my mother language, in Catalan. I made it, and I made it not only me. I co-directed with Touche Menet, she's also a director. It has the same philosophy. Also, the only particular thing is that we shot this short film in Los Angeles. It was so hilarious, because if you think about that, I got in the university telling me you have to go to Hollywood because there is a lot of things to do, and it was literally Hollywood. But doing it when I was doing it like shooting with one camera, no budget, it was like I made it to Hollywood with my own philosophy, but I didn't made it. I went there because for my wife, but I made a short film there and it worked also. It was acquired by Canal Plus too, so I kept going and I kept going, and then I made Mystic Tiger, which is like my last short film until today, which to be honest, probably it was like a kind of not successful experiment. I mean, the short film works, but because I accidentally won Palm Springs short fest, so I was accidentally pre-qualified for the Oscars, and I was not aware that this was even a system that exists at the time. I thought that the Oscars were like only rich people can send their movie or something like this. So this short film also gave me like my most probably important award in terms of the qualification for the Oscars, and it also helped me to understand how the Oscars thing goes and to realize that I don't want to go through that process. I mean, I made it to Hollywood to realize that I was right. This was a night, this process is a nightmare. So this is, and to end this filmography, right now I'm finishing an episodic series called Future Manifest. It's an anthology of short films with the same style, same philosophy, and each episode is the protagonist is a different person of my family, which is a kind of a family portrait, a science fiction family portrait. It's like a very inside joke, but I end up building it into a series. And right now today I'm exporting the series. So for first time it's almost finished. This is why I'm laughing all the time, and I'm very happy to finish because it has a nightmarish process also to make not only one short film, making 7 short films at a time. But yeah, I didn't die in the process. I burned my hands maybe a little bit, but I'm done and I am starting to send it to festivals, and let's see what happens.
My goodness. I'm speaking to a man who is a bit of a rebel, and we have a poster up in our office for Rebel Indie Spirit, and I think
no weapons, no rebel.
But good. But I love that, the fact that you I also went to Hollywood thinking that that's where you need to be and what you do, but it ends up being a rather horrible process, as you say. But I think you've stayed very true to your roots, and I love the idea of a science fiction family drama. I can't wait to see that. Give me 3 words, and throwing you on the spot here, but 3 words to describe your films and then maybe the process behind them.
3 words. Wow. I have talked for 10 minutes, and now just 3 words. I'm like a parrot, But it would be like unpredictable, I would say. I would say a little bit Sovietic, and I'm sorry, this is very weird to say now, but it's a little bit Sovietic in terms of composition, or yeah. And the last, I will probably say narrative. Not I would say over narrative. Maybe my work is to say something, not always a compliment. Maybe my work is a little bit over narrative. But yeah, this would be like my three things: Sovietic, over narrative, and the first one, which was I didn't remember.
Unpredictable.
Exactly. Like this situation right now. So yeah, I really like this.
Well, I mean, I love the fact. I mean, you're a true storyteller, a true cinematic storyteller, and I'm assuming that you're a person that when somebody says you can't do that, you say, "Oh yes, I can." Watch.
My own terms, yes, I can. I make like a space. To add to what you're saying, I was always wanted to make a space movie, But in my situation, it's like, okay, keep dreaming, man. But what I did is I make like a spacecraft, so a spaceship drama in the space. So I can tell if I die that I made like a space movie. Even if it's like it's a little bit like it's more like it feels more like a drawing than not reality. But it's a space movie, so Yeah, that's true. In my own terms, I can do that, and it's weird to say that I keep on my own principles because I think that I cannot choose about that. You know, if I go through a different diversion path, I think that I'm gonna get literally into the depression because I'm waking up every day to think with energy to be a director and something that I for so many time I have dreamed about. Refusing this is or changing this dream into something more economical, something more industrial. I prefer to seek another thing, you know, to study another thing maybe. This is a price to pay, and even when you go to Hollywood, you for sure know that there is a paycheck to pay there. In terms for your own persona, you have to stop being yourself.
You sell your soul. You sell your soul.
And there is a huge play happening there in Los Angeles. Everybody has a paper, and everybody's like under the spot. So this is not what I. If I have to start there to make a movie, I just want to go back to my house and make a movie the next day. You know, it's just. I mean, mathematically speaking, it's imperative.
You're the true embodiment of what we do. You know, I always say that where there's something inside you that it speaks so much that you need to tell that story.
It's burning. Yeah, there is yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling well.
Este soy yo, a punto de desaparecer para siempre jamás. Pero para entender esta historia deberíamos ir hacia atrás.
Ben Mallaby. Ben has been a part of the festival for many, many years. I can't even remember how many years it's been, but I'll read the bio my clever young things I've come up with. Award-winning comedy director working across television, commercials and short film. His show Please Help, which was produced by Tiger Aspect, who I've made films for over the years, was nominated for a BAFTA, the Best Short Form program for a BAFTA in 2022. Which was great. I do believe I voted for that, Ben. He's also directed a lot of stuff for BBC Three, ITV, Comedy Central. He has well over 1 million views on Vimeo for his shorts. His short films were played in festivals all over the world, including the London Film Festival, Palm Springs, and of course ÉCU several times. Also nominated for another BAFTA in 2014 with his film Island Queen. Co-founder of a comedy production company. His film, which we'll talk about shortly because I'm reading the tagline in front of me now and I just don't know if I can say it with a straight face. Ben Mallaby, my goodness gracious me, what a pleasure it is to, see you again after all these years and to think about the fun films you've shared with us over the time here at ÉCU. Tell us a little bit about you leading up to 2016, Ben.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's a very sweet intro. What was my background? Geez, I feel a bit stitched up coming after Geraldine. My goodness, what were you thinking? Geraldine, when you hear what my story's about, you are going to be so disappointed in me.
Every story is a good one, Ben. Every good story is a good one.
Yeah, so where did I start? So I did film school and I wanted to be a big successful film director. That was what I assumed would happen. And then I went out into the world and reality hit. And I was doing kind of corporate work and not very happy with how things were going. And we're only talking a few years out of uni before I realized that what was missing was I needed to start making my own work again. And what inspired me, weirdly, was going back to university and teaching film courses. And some of my students were submitting to festivals and playing their films. And I'd never done this. I'd never been taught how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. I hadn't had that level of intuition, I suppose. But seeing them do it really inspired me. So I made a few films and submitted them to festivals, including the ECU. And I used to, I call it the ECU, you call it ÉCU.
Yeah, that's tomatoes and tomatoes, man.
I'm gonna switch to your thing because you probably know better. But I started bringing students to your festival. A long time ago, my friend. I think it was your third
I was there. Yeah.
The third one was my first one, and so I was in the. I was trying to submit films to festivals and trying to raise awareness of my films, and I would submit to yours, and you played one of my early films even before 2016. And then what a joy also to be able to bring my students to Paris and to have a wonderful time, and then to take them to a screening and watch my film with them, and you know, that was a very kind of fun thing to be able to do. But yeah, I had some level of success with them early ones. One you mentioned, While You Were Away, was my 2016 submission. And again, my apologies, Geraldine. My film While You're Away was written by a great writer, Gabe Miller, who had seen something of mine and he wanted to collaborate. He had a fantastic film in the previous year, which I just loved. So I was so happy to work with him. And I only preface it that way because it was his idea, not mine. And it's a script about a woman coming home from a weekend away, and her husband's acting very shifty, and she can't figure out why, but she's jumping to all the wrong conclusions. You're having an affair, what have you done? Where are the kids? And he settles her down and tries to kind of calm her down before telling her what he did. And what he did was, while she was away, for no particular reason, he decided to cut his own penis off. And so there's about, a couple of minutes of the two of them just trying to like register even just what he said. Then she gets angry and he gets defensive. And finally he has a big grandstanding moment. He stands up, he rips his stitches in the process, unfortunately. He stands up and says, I'm a good father, I'm a good husband, I look after you. And she apologizes and then confesses that she lost the house in a gambling incident while she was away. So, fun little thing. So that was our silly little story, which we shot in a day or two and submitted around and played, and 2016 was a fun year in that respect.
I mean, the thing about you, Ben, is your stories were always very inspiring for me, and I never did much of take up the inspiration except recently. Is used to write them or get them written and then shoot them in a day or so, get them out. You often work with the same people.
Yep.
It's a much different process than weaving together documentary. How does, and again, I'm asking this so you can give advice to the clever young things on the call and who will listen to this. The idea of collaboration and teams and sticking together. That's a thing.
Yeah, it's a lovely story, I think, because it just speaks to this process, and this process is making something when you have no profile, no heat, no clout, and no contacts, and no money, and to make something and then to take it somewhere and to watch it with people. And so Rachel Stubbings, who features in that film, was someone who had a film in at a festival at the London Comedy Film Festival in around 2012, I'd say. And I saw the film that she had written and starred in, and I just said to the person next to me, she's a superstar, who's that person? And they said, oh, that's Stubbo. I'll introduce you later. And they were just friends from the comedy circuit. And so we just, we decided to write something together, and we collaborated. And then we did our own things. And then it's this writer coming to me because he had seen something of mine. I can't actually remember what it would be. Saying, I think Rachel Stubbings, who you did that with, should be in this. And the process of building your group based on everyone making similar kind of films and just enjoying each other's tone and humor and what you bring, and then thinking, wow, you plus me, that's going to be really fun, isn't it? People are going to enjoy that, presumably. And so, for a good long run, I had a kind of a handful of people who I would just keep going back to the well, and I had just a really kind of good creative burst around that time, making film after film before I had kids, which was also 2016, when I had to slow down a bit.
life changes a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. 2016 was a funny year because the boys were born that year, and I decided I'm going to shoot as many films as I can this year. And this was the year after While You're Away came out. But it was the process I had at that time, which was get as many scripts as you can. And I think I shot 6 short films back to back over about 3 weeks. And I just literally jumped from one film to the next film. And I've never done it since. But there was some really good, fun work that came out of that. And I just knew that I'd be able to kind of release them slowly over time, anticipating that my time was going to become more precious. Yeah, so that was fun. It was a good year for that.
You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. You're an amazing dad. You're an amazing husband.
I'm going to bounce back to Geraldine. Geraldine, in those 10 years, trying to save the world and make sense of this crazy planet, as you say, what have you been up to, and what are some memorable moments for you?
Well, I have not told any stories about people cutting off body parts.
Well, the day's not over.
Like there's
it is a momentous moment in the cinema, I can tell you, because he just shouts it out, and you've got 250 people in the cinema going, "Ah!"
That was my reaction today.
Men holding themselves here like this, and women going, "Oh," I'm clapping, of course. But anyway,
what have you been doing while I was away?
Yeah. The last 10 years.
The last 10 years. So in my bio at the beginning, when you described me, I actually left CNN in 2016.
Okay.
And since then, I've run independent newsrooms and worked on a variety of projects, and they're all as happy as the first one. So now I'm trying to be funny, because my stories tend to
you have to cut your arm off to be funny around Ben.
My stories tend to be quite intense and serious. One story, it actually ended up being an audio documentary that went across 4 seasons, was recorded for the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is a organization in the United States which fights against hate and all expressions of it, and tries to make sure that this is a nation that supports justice and equity and equality. And so they came to me and asked me about starting a podcast, and we got into it. And the title of the podcast series is Sounds Like Hate. And each season would just explore the unfortunate ways that people other, and so it starts off. That entire series of 4 seasons began with the story of a woman who helped organize the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017. And then as she was doing it and seeing the results of it, decides to get out and is in this hate group that's so violent and extreme that she has to assume a new identity. Like basically goes into hiding to survive, because she thinks that this group will eventually find her. And when we met up with her, she was still in hiding, using an assumed name, had changed the color of her hair, lived in a different part of the country, and really lived with this fear that one day, somewhere, somehow, someone would either accidentally or actively seek her out. And it was her story. And we went from there to tell these other stories. We told a story at one point about these secret recordings we were able to get from an informant, where it's inside a recruiting recruiting sessions for a white supremacy organization. And in those secret recordings, because it is recordings of people who are wanting to join, so they are of like mind. The conversations were particularly fascinating because they're not outside protesting or actively doing something in the moment. What they're doing is talking about, well, why do you want to join our club? Like it sounds so normal when you listen to them, because they could be talking about they're screening candidates, and it could be a club for cricket. Like it's so not shocking the way they speak to each other. And we later got more recordings where these new members are now in, and you see the conversations change. And so this podcast goes through all of these things. But what's fascinating is each episode of each season kind of predicted where we are today in America. Like these secret recordings included people discussing a scenario like January 6th, the insurrection. We had a season where a couple of episodes were focused on Confederate monuments and a tiny town in Alabama where they were trying to take down a single insignificant Confederate monument, and just the battle against and the resistance against doing that. And then, you know, almost to the date, a year later, during the uprising about what happened to George Floyd, Confederate monuments start falling all over the country. So much of what we were doing, and each year as we went along this podcast, it exposed what was actively happening in the country. And so much of what we see in leadership now and in everyday life was documented in this podcast as we moved along. And in fact, right now we're talking about returning to it in another format because these stories, unfortunately, are still relevant.
It's amazing that people have time to get so involved in that, and it's sort of so under the carpet, as you say, and you've brought it out and you've been doing it, and very prescient and stuff like that. It must have been very interesting for you to start seeing what you'd seen previously just build up and lead to this. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic storytelling. I mean, it's very interesting, I find, having grown up in TV a long time ago. I started when I was 17, and TV being the most important thing, and then when it got into films and whatever, and now a lot of people that I find, including ourselves, we're doing it right now, is there's still a desire to have long-form storytelling, and even if it's by audio and the stuff that you can get into, because everyone talks about the 5-second or the 15-second hit, but I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that, and I find it extremely interesting, much more than sitting down and watching a 90-minute film. I listen to a lot more 2-hour, 3-hour podcasts than I do with film. And what you were saying before is storytelling. Ben's short, sharp, bang, very, very emotionally driven. He hits the right points very quickly, which is admirable. But also, I think there's place for that. But there's also place for what you're doing, long form. People need to hear these stories. I think that's the thing, both comedic and also what you're doing. Geraldine, it's such a joy to talk to you. But I'm going to jump back to Ben. Hopefully, he hasn't cut any appendages off while we've been away. So 2016 was a big year. You had kids. You made films quickly. So tell me, apart from that, what have you been up to in those 10 years, my friend?
Yeah, kids. I carried on teaching, so I'm still working at a university, London South Bank, and I think I started in 2016, so I've been there 10 years now, and that's very fulfilling and enjoyable. And then I kept making shorts, and I got a TV pilot, which didn't get picked up, but did do some business. And a lot of my time my spare time is making adverts. I do, ads are perfect for me, and you know, again, I have short films to thank for that. Everything good, I have short films to thank, because I would make these little quippy short comedies, which it turns out is what brands and agencies and production companies are looking for when they're trying to sell something. And so I've fallen into a kind of a sweet spot of two people talking, which is very while you're away, and just finding some humor and having fun with a bit of improvisation wherever possible, just to kind of find something fun and truthful and authentic in a silly situation. And they're quick as well. You can do them in a day. Again, that's my favorite place to be. Very quick, short form stuff. I don't know what else. And then the last 6 years I've spent trying to do a blooming PhD, which I'm hopefully finishing this year. So 2026 will be a glorious.
What are you PhDing in? What matters are you doing in PhDing?
I am doing it on, so I wanted to look at interactive narrative storytelling. So I made a film on Twitch. I streamed the film as I was making it, and it's one continuous take. It's like theatre, I guess, but the audience are tapping away and they can see their chat in the film on a screen whilst this performance is happening. And so I've just spent the last 5 years messing around with various approaches to allowing the audience to feedback in real time while something's being made. And that's been fun. You know, that's been very much like, PhDs aren't supposed to be fun. I mean, the written part isn't fun, and that's what I've got to do this year. But yes, that's what I've been doing. And then I'm going to switch gears, hopefully next year, and get back into producing more stuff again. That's the goal.
I'm going to hand over to Rodrigo, who's got our clever young things here.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Geraldine. Our first question actually comes from Jana.
Hello, Geraldine. It's so nice to see you here. My question is, you won the festival back in 2016 with your short film. What does that moment represent for you today and to the child's family?
Oh, wow. So every year on the anniversary of James's birth, and twice a year on the anniversary of his passing, his family and I have conversations. They're usually text conversations, and we update each other on where we are, what we're doing. In the film, Jana, you meet his sister, who at that point is, I think she just finished high school. She's in university and she's aspiring to be a doctor. And like the most emotional scene in the entire movie. And when I say it's the kind of movie that makes you feel like running out and grabbing someone you love and just hugging them and expressing how deeply you care for them, it's that kind of film. And his sister wanted to be a doctor, and then there's a moment in the film when she finds out, like, this is it, like this, he stays away from the end of his journey, and she collapses and she's crying and she's saying, I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. Well, fast forward 10 years, she is now a physician, and she's working in pediatric oncology, and entirely inspired by her brother. And in addition to working full-time as a physician, she's also running his foundation. And so the beautiful thing about the story is we always check in with each other to see how we're all doing, but we also check in to see what more we can be doing to create awareness and support James's dream. So I really do feel like the beauty of storytelling, whether it's scripted or unscripted, is the ability to change lives. And I think this is the kind of film that does that. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for your answer. I got chills. Thank you.
And our next question comes from Sophia.
Hello. I'm very glad to meet you. I have a question is what advice would you give to young filmmakers or journalists who want to tell deeply personal stories like this with responsibility and care?
Hi, Sophia. It's nice to meet you. I would say one of the best lessons I ever got for documentary filmmaking is when you're doing interviews, like the interviews are so critical, people really want to talk. People want to tell their stories. And so often as journalists, we step on people as they're trying to tell their stories. And the best advice I was ever given was ask your question, let the person answer, and then wait. Just pause. Because what happens in that pause, the person you're speaking to is still processing their answer. And most times they start to speak again and they continue. And almost always that gem, the section you want to use in your documentary is what they said after they processed their last answer and they want to continue. And I think that's the best secret advice I ever received, and I do it in every story I produce and direct.
Okay, thank you a lot. That's very helpful.
Geraldine, that's fabulous answer. I mean, the Stoics, I read a lot of the Stoics, and it's, you've got two ears and one mouth, and just take that on board. I think is a good thing. But that's fabulous advice.
Perfect. So our first question actually comes from Chiara.
Hello, Rodrigo. Hello, yeah. Hello.
Hello. Hello again. So, I wanted to ask that all your projects, also after Horseface, like for example, Timothy, Tu Ultimo Dio en la Tierra, also have animal masks or just masks. So, where does this choice come from?
I mean, to be honest, I can answer. I'm gonna answer, but it's not 100%, verified because I think, when you are like making a hike to a mountain and you just try to find a better path, and then sometimes you have to use like a huge, you find like a river and there is like a giant tree and you go through that tree. The mask was that tree for me to go through a creative process that was stuck in this moment, but when I added a animal mask into the story, I can just cross the river and go to another huge dimension of craziness, So I think that this was my way to jump to the other side, a little bit of more the fantasy, the science fiction. It's something that I think I'm living. But even when I thought about the stories, I was not thinking about a portrait of animals. I was like I was making movies in order a little bit to survive, and it's like, okay, the mask works, let's gonna put this mask, and at the very end, when you see like all the posters in your profile of Internet Movie Database, you realize that you are like a kind of zoophilic or something like this. I'm just kidding, but you are like, you have a passion there, but yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your narrative storytelling, so thank you.
Perfect. Our next question comes from Susanna.
Hello. So I was wondering, what is that dream project you're so hoping to make?
Wow, that I would love to make like my own 2001: A Space Odyssey, but not in terms of it's a realistic world. As you can see, it's a realistic world. But my dream project right now would be to have right now. I have a science fiction project, but to make that. Because it's like a kind of it's a project that talks about the historical truth, and how the historical truth, and it's a project. It's called Inverse Odyssey, and goes about a person that goes back in time in order to preserve what really happened in history. So this is my dream project, to do this with a lot of money, and burning everything, like thinking that this is my last movie and I don't care if it makes €1 budget. It's like I did what I want and I kept that piece. This would be my dream project. But meanwhile, because to convince people to make this, I need to go through another creative path maybe, because it's not a project that I feel that I can do right now. To the project that I need to be older to culture myself a little bit more in order to talk about certain things. But this would be my dream project. Yes, my dream project is my daughter to keep her alive. This is my dream project. But after that, it's this. Just saying it because if my daughter sees this one, in the future, in 10 years, when I'm going to be trending topic again, I don't want her to get offended or something.
Perfect. And my last question actually comes from me. Hello, Marc. Thank you very much for joining us today. So I have two questions actually. My first question is, what advice do you have for young filmmakers?
I'm going to answer this question based on my own experience with, it's not the same life that maybe has another person from our point of the country. But I had also the pleasure to talk with Chiara before a little bit about this topic. I think that right now we live in I don't know if to use this word, but bulimic society. Like everything is like super fast. Amazing directors, 20 years making the movie. It's like this pressure, it's like this pressure. But I think that it's something empirical in terms of filmmaking, that is, if you make a movie about something that you really understand or you really don't understand, sometimes cinema can get split into movies that people make because they don't understand nothing, but the movie can be okay, but they don't understand nothing, or they talk about feelings, things that can represent the inner questions of the director or the creator, whatever. So I would say, give you a lot of time to live. I know that this is like a little bit of a weird question. Don't get pressure about making things that speaks from the true soul of a guru. You need to live, and this is something that you cannot avoid. And thankfully, maybe in 20 years, a 5-year-old director made a movie in IE, won an Oscar, but probably this kid hasn't lived the life of if it's not like something science fiction weird, it's never is gonna speak from people that has more life experience. So I would say that living, you don't have to jump from a plane, you don't have to need to impregnate yourself about reality, because reality is extremely weird and mysterious. And it can generate you a lot of questions that can get into movies, Otherwise, if you get into your room and you look only these two frames, it's going to be very difficult to keep having questions.
Perfect. And my last question is, you already mentioned some of it, that some of your shorts are on YouTube, but where can people watch your previous films?
Well, they can watch my previous films, depending on the country, in my Vimeo account, they can watch everything. It's a fact. Otherwise, they can find it in Filming, in Canal Plus. Maybe there are some of my work, but it's a little bit spread. In Amazon Prime, there is something there. In Shorts TV also. But if you want to have a nice curation of my work, you can go to my Vimeo. You put Marc Martínez Jordán Vimeo is the first. Otherwise, I would say that YouTube also has a few of my short films because they were acquired by Alter and Dust, the two American platforms. So probably they can try in YouTube, and then if they like it what they saw, they can find my Vimeo account. Yeah, that would be the process.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Our first question actually comes from Rosella.
My question for you, Ben, is when making a short film, how can you balance absurd and provocative concepts with emotional truth?
Gosh, good writing. I don't know. That's a very interesting question. I think the absurdity and the provocation is there to punch through the noise a little bit, and so definitely the more successful films are ones that are pushing boundaries a little bit conceptually and in execution. So I think it is important to find your version of that, and mine is often grotesque or a bit bloody. And then, yes, you do need to find a way, depending on the kind of short you're telling, but certainly if you're doing 10-15 minute shorts, you do have to make sure that your characters achieve some kind of enlightenment, and finding a way to make someone who might begin grotesque sympathetic is the challenge of the writing, and integral to, you know, putting the audience through a journey. So how you do it, I don't know, but it's something you got to do, and you've got to figure out what it is that's truthful about that character that you can reveal after you've, you know, grossed everybody out. Yeah, something like that.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And our next question comes from Chiara.
Hello, hi. First of all, I really love your work and your comedy. I love also like the good grotesque, as you said before, kind of work. And my question is, you moved fluidly between shorts, TV, commercial. I also follow like your work with Alexa Chung, and I think she's like the most trendable 2016 Tumblr person, actually. So, what has each of these formats taught you?
What have they each taught me? That's an interesting question. I mean, shorts taught me that if you want to make things for people, you need to be able to prove what you're capable of. So you've got to remove risk from an employer's kind of list of worries about you. And so short form is something that you can do off your own back and kind of create an impression for other people. Ads are interesting because you are promoting a product which can feel a bit icky if you don't buy into the pitch, you know. So short form ads, you've got to try and find a way into the idea. I mean, often you're given the creative, but you've got to find a way to present it in a way that, you know, still feels like it's your product and that's something you can be proud of. YouTube series are kind of interesting. Those come about in the same way that ads come about. There'll be a production company, and so those Alexa Chung videos you mentioned are interesting because someone wanted a kind of funny spin on I mean, she's a very funny lady, but she's a fashion lady first, and she's a presenter, and she's a style, you know, icon. And so they wanted to find a way to kind of bring some humor into these pieces that they were making for her. But it worked for me. They were quick shoots again, and we could just mess around and have fun figuring out a way to present her for her audience in a way that would engage them. So I can't remember what your question was, but it was something like, what do you learn from these things?
Yes, from each of these formats. I mean, they're so different, but they still have like the same vibes also that you put in.
Yeah. I mean, what you learn is you learn what people want from you and what they're willing to ask of you, you know, based on what you put out there before. So you learn like, oh, I'm marketable in this way, or I'm interesting to people in this way or that way, or this thing that I'm doing, which is just intuitive and something that just feels right or feels like something I would enjoy doing, resonates with this kind of person and can lead to this kind of paid work, which obviously is like the goal, to make some money from it. And so I guess to take from that, it's like, well, if you're trying to go in a specific direction, you might feel resistance because you want to do a feature film or longer form. You might struggle because you haven't proven yourself in that arena, and you've got to figure out, you know, you might tie yourself in knots trying to figure out how to behave in such a way to draw those people in, when actually I think the lesson is to just make stuff that speaks to you and put it out there and see who it connects with. And that certainly is how my career has progressed.
Yes, and it still has your sign. So I mean, you can see that it's still your work. So even if it's not a longer movie, but still is something that you put your efforts in it and your art. So it still matters.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually super curious, Ben, about your PhD.
Oh yeah.
And the idea of following technology and incorporating it into your storytelling, particularly because technology changes so rapidly. And right now there's an evolution happening with social media. It's allegedly evolving into something else. And you were using Twitch for your project. What happens when you're on a long-term project like a PhD over 5 years and the technology you're using expires, right? It becomes obsolete or people aren't using it anymore. Like, what is it more about the theory of the tech, or do you have to figure out how it's still relevant?
Gosh, I don't want to bore everyone else, but I will say, so when I started, we were in COVID. And the reason I went to Twitch was because stand-up comedians couldn't perform in live venues anymore, and we had to do it online. And I was just observing that this is where the people who I love were now performing, and the way in which they performed was unique. Twitch wasn't designed to be a destination for stand-up comedian to do hour-long sets, and the way that they were using it was different to how everyone else was using it. So I was so interested by how people were manipulating software to kind of bend to their will and their needs. But then COVID ended. And so I was left with this moment of, well, shit, everyone's gone back to live venues and they're not on Twitch anymore. And what am I now interested in? And so the work had to evolve. But I think what is interesting about the experience for me is, I mean, I see a lot of new tech coming in and everyone going, oh, it's 3D now, or oh, it's, it's those LED back walls, and oh, it's AI, and people always come in with this, like, it's the death of this, it's the death of that.
Yeah.
And I'm always very bored by those things because they always feel very temporary and very kind of incremental and not a universal truth for every film project. But what I do like is the fundamentals of film, storytelling, writing, performance, and connecting with audiences, and trying to find ways to use this kind of noise, this stuff that exists that people get very fixated on, and try to find a way to do something, that still fulfills my basic needs, which is like storytelling. And I think people can get lost in like, we don't need people anymore,
So the tech is ephemeral, but the storytelling stays.
Yeah, it's like, what can I manipulate?
Yeah.
How can I get something that's still, So like, it's been really interesting in that respect. And it's very like DIY what I've been doing. There's no money in it. There's no, anyone could achieve what we did. And that's also very interesting to me as well.
I asked the question because I haven't heard about Twitch in a long time. So when you said you're doing your PhD and it's on a project that uses Twitch, I was like, wait, does anybody use that anymore? So I was like,
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's Twitch or you could do it on YouTube, you could do it anywhere. It's like,
it's not relevant, the type of technology.
Where if you can just find someone with an audience somewhere and it's connecting to that audience. And so very quickly, but the guy who was the star of my film has a Twitch audience, and it's only 100, 200 people who come in, but I was just kind of using his audience to practice something, and they loved it. It was such an interesting thing. Maybe I'll submit it, Scott, the film, because I call it an artifact because it's not really a short film in a traditional sense. Like, to watch it now, you lose something. You had to kind of be there and watch it with the chat and be a part of it, but you can still watch it and be like, oh, that's what that, I'll try and understand what it must have been like to see this thing unfold live.
Perfect. Thank you very much for everybody for answering the questions. Now we're going back to you, Scott.
Great questions to the ÉCU crew. Thank you very much. Everyone, both Geraldine and Ben, have big fan clubs in our office, so it's a pleasure to speak to them. And they've watched your films, and they know a lot about you. They will be scared of you, Ben, if you start walking around with a knife. But apart from that, it's all good. We're going to wrap this up. It's a sheer pleasure to talk to Geraldine and Ben.
Okay, so thanks very much, Mark. It's such a pleasure after all these years to finally catch up again and go through this. And the advice that you gave is fabulous. I love your talk about the film schools. I have a very weird point of view on film schools, and I after many years of being a filmmaker, I went back to NYU because I figured I needed to do that, and I'm glad I did. But I'm also glad that it wasn't the focal point of my career. And if anyone out there is going to a film school, do exactly what Mark did. Learn the rules, break them. Put a horse face on somebody. Just be imaginative. Don't sort of get caught in the thing of you need to do it this way. Of course, know the rules, learn the rules. Stick with them a little bit, but then break them. And the only bit of advice I can throw on top of what you said is being brave. And I think that's what you've done. Being brave not just to make films, but also everybody is going to have a professional crisis. We all have personal crisis, but you will have a professional crisis. Know it, accept it, move through it. And don't be scared to put yourself in a situation where you are going to have a professional crisis, because you will, and if you survive and you get back up, it's going to make you better and stronger and do what it did to you. It put you back on the path of telling stories that mean something to you, which is what I like about your filmmaking. Mark, you're a true champion. I'm also going to reach out to you later on to make sure that you're on part of our official selection jury or judging commission to help find these amazing filmmakers who are still out there. I have to say, I get a lot of films through our 4 film festivals, and there still are people out there like you who have that desire to tell stories. And I think the idea of impregnating yourself with life is so important. And also, if you've got a story, just tell it. There's never a ready time. Now is the time to do it. So, Mark, you're a true champion, man. It's so good to go back and see that you've gone on, and I'm glad. I hope that any little help that we gave you with ÉCU, where we did it with pride to see where you are now.
Scott, a pleasure. I'm astonished about your words, about all these questions, about this amazing environment you have. If I can help, I would be a pleasure to be part of your festival in any way. And thank you. I can just say thank you. You made my day, probably my week. Probably my week. And this also. I also want to tell to your festival, but also to other festivals that rely on my work, that they were also the true reason that I am here. My Horseface could not achieve many selections. I was competing with, and you saw a lot of works that were better produced, a lot of effort, and you had the last word to choose about a dude that make a short film with his grandma or a super produced short film, and this is what is transforming cinema. And I want to also to use this spot to give importance to film festivals, because obviously there are a lot of film festivals in the different spectrum, but festivals like you are helping to change cinema, not from the top of the mountain, but from the roots, for the genetical roots, from the directors. Because otherwise, I don't saw myself in this position. In movies, it would be impossible if I didn't won award in your festival. It would be impossible. I would be probably an informatic working in the AT department, but I would be like this. So I have to extend a thank you and a gratitude for you and all your crew and all the film festival selectors that watch all the short films, which can be very heavy. It's heavy duty. So thank you, because I achieve what I achieve. Also, thank you to you and festivals like you.
Just a quick one to do a bit of self-promotion here about the ÉCU, the European Independent Film Festival. We're closing for submissions this Friday the 13th of February. A day before, all of my staff will be getting chocolates and cards from their loved ones for Valentine's Day. And then the film festival is on the 23rd, 24th and 25th of April here in Paris. And again, just to remind you, we're on all 4 continents now. We have a film festival in Mexico City called the All Americas Independent Film Festival, one in Kigali, Rwanda, which is the All African Independent Film Festival, and the All Asian Independent Film Festival in Cambodia in December. So there's a lot of venues for independent filmmakers from all over every continent, or 4 continents, to submit their films and get them seen. And then we do a tour, a global tour, where we show these films to a lot of people, because as Geraldine rightly pointed out, everybody needs stories. And we've hit both spectrums here. We've had very deep, serious, inspirational, but not always the happiest stories, but also ones where you cut appendages off. But, you know, I think we're all in agreement that we need stories. So for me, a story is sort of the fabric of our soul. So for anybody watching, to try and take some advice from this, Geraldine's thing, and I think it also rates in, you know, in your personal life, but when you're interviewing somebody, it's the pause, it's the moment of the pause where you get a lot of things. And same as talking in bars or airplanes or whatever, which I do a lot of, you know, listen more than you speak. It's a good thing. And from Ben, you know, make stuff that touches you. And I think that's a thing. And Ben very successfully shown me over the years that, you know, in a day and a few people on a camera and a good story. And one thing you missed talking about, Ben, is your wit and humour is very intelligent, and which is why it's so it speaks so much to us. So we're going to wrap it here. I'd like to thank Rodrigo, the ÉCU crew. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll speak at you soon.